Good afternoon, everyone. Kalla here. Welcome to my live stream. Glad you could make it today. So today is more Great Ace Attorney Chronicles as we continue our way through the final chapter. Last time, we found out a lot of stuff in our attempt to establish that our defendant is not in fact the Reaper and is not involved in the death by the inspector. It kind of looks like Judge Shigoku may be involved, given that he tried to flee the country. But we're bringing him back. So let's see where that goes, eh? The unexpected halt of proceedings sent a clamour around the courtroom. But outside the Bailey, while Londoners knew nothing of the secret trial within, it was a typical still night. Then, at a little past 8 o'clock that evening, Mr. Sholmes and his partner returned to Baker Street. Hey Nick, how's it going? 3rd of November, 8:07 PM, Sholmes' suite. It looks like we're having some food. We have returned, my dear fellows. Welcome back to Britain, and thank you for your timely help. Think nothing of it. I believe you've had an even more wearing day than Mikotoba and I know. You could say that. We were on the brink of defeat in court earlier. I am also fine, thank you. So this prosecutor, Asogi, had you on the ropes, did he? And he's your best friend, you say? Well, he's not really the man I knew in Japan anymore. Kazuma's changed. Oh, Mr. Naruhodo. I mean, it's incredible. To think that he'd even entertained the idea of acting as the Reaper's assassin. Well, nevertheless, you must introduce me. After all, I've only ever met the young man as a corpse. When all this started, almost a year ago now. Mr. Sholmes still hasn't told us the truth about what really happened back then. About the motivation for what he himself described as a great detective's lie. Now then, I must say, it's really quite a journey all the way to France. Well, it is another country, Mr. Sholmes. So, what's news of Shigoku? We took him to Scotland Yard. The investigating detectives there have a lot of questions for the man. Poor Professor Mikotoba. This must be quite a shock for him. Ah yes, I picked this up at the telegraph office on our way back home. What is it? Surely you haven't forgotten already. I put you up for the matter only yesterday. You put upon me, Sholmes. I had to fill out your telegram to Japan and foot the bill as well. Oh, you've had a reply already? What was so urgent though, Mr. Sholmes? Such matters can wait until later. I'm far too hungry for an involved conversation at present. Well, that's good news, because supper is ready, everyone. It's a full-on roast, apparently. Ah, and what a feast it is! If I were none the wiser, I'd think the trial were won already. Roast beef, kippers, stew, steak and kidney pie, Yorkshire pudding. Is there roast beef back there? I think that's a roast chicken, but I can see a pie. I can't I don't know if I can see Yorkshire puddings back there either. Tomorrow could be a very long day, so eat up. I doubt it's a turkey. I mean, I don't actually know when turkeys became a thing. Like, did Britain have turkeys in the 1900s? Because they're American. When did they bring them across over here? When did Brits start eating them? That's a good question. That's the question we want. Henry VIII. Okay. Ah, there we go. For centuries, the turkey was a preserve of well-to-do and middle classes. It was only after the Second World War, when it became cheaper to rear, that the turkey became the population's Christmas bird of choice. So... Ah! 1573. But by the sounds of it, only for posh people. Yeah, I would have thought it was way more recent than the 1500s. I've never been a turkey for Christmas sort of person. Much prefer a ham. But anyway, since this isn't a Christmas meal, it's probably a chicken. In that case, I think I'll seat myself just here. This place appears to be the only one set with a helping of pheasant as well. Or it could be pheasant. Could be pheasant. That seems more appropriate. Yeah, it's traditional to eat turkey where you are as well, is it? Yeah, a roast ham is more traditional English than turkey is, although obviously over time it's skewed a bit. And it's basically, if you've ever had like gammon or anything, it's basically that. Oh, sorry Hurley, not there. Why ever not? Are we in set places this evening? Yes, and that place is for Susie's daddy. For me? That's right, I made it especially for you, Professor Mickey. Professor Mickey. I see. Well, that's terribly kind of you. It's a shame, really. What do you mean? Well, for a brief moment I believed it. That Susie and I were half-sisters, I mean. Why do you now imagine all his voice lines sounding like Mickey Mouse? That was a temptation, but no, I'm not doing that. Oh! Iris, do you mean... Yes, I know now. I overheard yesterday. I secretly listened into the conversation you had after I tricked you all into thinking I'd left. What? Wait. Does Iris know about her dad now? The misunderstanding arose because of that autopsy report from 10 years ago. But actually, it turned out that neither Dr. Wilson nor Professor Mikotoba are Iris's father. Oh, Dr. Wilson isn't either. Yeah, so about that, Iris. You know I know, you can't tell me at the moment. Oh, Iris. So who is Iris's dad, then? The pheasant is by way of an apology. I'm sorry for eavesdropping. Oh, no, that's quite alright. Then why don't I get any apologetic, pheasant? Probably because you've been keeping a secret for all this time, Shams. So just who is Iris's father? What if Iris's dad is the professor? You mean what if she's like half sibling to Kazuma? Or, well, actually, no, because we're not. I guess we're not certain that the professor was Kazuma's dad at this point. What if Iris is just like an orphan Sholmes adopted off the street and he doesn't even know? I suppose that's not something we'll be finding out today. So then, let us dine, while our largely pheasantless plates are still piping hot. A fine idea, Sholmes. It all looks absolutely delicious. Eat as much as you'd like. There are always seconds. This could be our last chance to ask questions before tomorrow's trial. About that telegram from Japan, and about Kazuma. I can't let this opportunity slip away. Ah, Sholmes. Okay, let's examine the food first. Oh, we can't examine the food. Okay. I guess there's nothing new here from last time then. So we'll use this to talk to Sholmes. Mr. Sholmes, what are you doing? Sulking by the looks of it. Surely it's abundantly clear that I wasn't brooding over Mikotoba's refusal to share his pheasant with me. Nevertheless, I felt the need to withdraw from the social circle for a while and look on with hungry eyes. Very early, but I cooked that pheasant especially for Susie's daddy. Even though I played the role of father to you for far longer. Mr. Sholmes? Could I discuss some things with you? Certainly, my dear fellow. I find myself quite in the mood for a spell of conversation. No doubt you're hungry to learn more about my deep love of game. No, we don't want to know about your pheasant obsession, sir. I can probably contain my curiosity on that one. You needn't look at me in that fashion. In what fashion? It seems that before we discuss the pheasant, we have some rather unpheasant matters to discuss. Unpheasant. Do I like game? I haven't really eaten that much. In fact, I'm not sure if I've ever eaten a game bird at all. I have tried venison, that was quite nice. So, what was in the telegram you received back from Japan then? Ah, this! I thank my lucky stars it arrived in time. I'm pretty sure quail counts. Quail's a game bird. Record found as indicated. Duplicate follows. K. Asogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson. What? Those 4 names. We've seen those before. We've come across that exact same list before. They came up in that unforgettable case last spring. What appeared to be a simple case of aggravated murder turned out to be masking monumental intrigue. A plot that involved the sale of British governmental secrets to foreign states. In exposing the means by which those secrets were being leaked, we deciphered a fragment of a message. K. Asogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson. But we didn't find the names out until the case was over, and we never did get to the bottom of what they meant. All we knew was that the information had been sent by somebody in the British government to somebody in Japan. So, why are the names coming up again now? Yes! Where did the sender of your telegram discover them, Mr. Shones? I have here the message I had wired yesterday. Allow me to read it to you. Enter Judge Shigoku's office undetected and investigate telegram records. Expect to find communication from Britain dated 1 year ago. List of 4 names. Need by tomorrow. Naruhodo. Hey, you used my name for this? I sent it to a detective I know who specializes in clandestine missions of this nature. I had a feeling it was him. You asked Inspector Hosonaga to undertake such an onerous task for you? And in my name? I wonder what guise he opted for this time. I also love how the profile picture we have of him is still his seaside disguise. My dear fellows, it was a matter of great urgency, you understand. Anyway, the list of names was found in Seishiro's office, as Sholmes predicted. Ooh. So you mean that mysterious collection of names that was sent from Britain to Japan was... It was sent to Judge Shigoku! He was the intended recipient! Wait, just a second. K. Asogi. Death faked, but still quite alive. A. Shin. Dead. I've lost the order of the names. Gregson. Dead. And Wilson. Dead. Suspicious. Everyone on that list is dead now except for Casimir, and he was considered dead for a while. I don't believe it. But that doesn't answer the question of what the list of names actually signifies. I did formulate a hypothesis about that. Yeah, exactly. It sounds like a hit list, doesn't it? But without a shred of evidence, I couldn't possibly have shared it. Mr. Sholmes. Sorry, Mr. Sholmes looks deadly serious for once. The telegram from Japan has been entered into the court record. A telegram from Inspector Hosonaga in Japan with details of the telegram he managed to locate by stealing into Judge Shigaku's office. T. Gregson, that was it. Because it's Tobias. Is it also worth noting that Aishin killed Jay Wilson? Dunno. That tragedy we had to go through on the SS Buria. It was all for nothing. Casimir wasn't dead at all. We were completely taken in by the lie you told us, your great detective's lie. I took no pleasure in deceiving you. However, at the time, all that concerned me was preventing the young man's study tour from taking place, whatever the cost. What? What? I capitalized on the events that transpired to see that he was sent back to Japan. His remains, you mean? Precisely, Miss Susato. And then I made sure that somebody else was sent to Britain in his stead. Oh my, you mean... The arrangement between our two countries was already in place. One university student lawyer and one judicial assistant to be accommodated on a study tour. In other words, by arranging for someone else to fill the place originally intended for Mr. Asogi, I would successfully prevent the man from arriving on our shores for several years at least. Wait, do you mean to say that it was all in aid of stopping Casimir coming to Britain? That's why you... Think back, Mr. Naruhodo. Was there not somebody who quite casually urged you to continue on the voyage to England? Hosonaga. The terms of this study tour were negotiated by the Department of Justice in both Great Britain and Japan. In the light of Mr. Asogi's unfortunate death, I'm afraid the study tour can no longer go ahead. My dear fellows, the majority of problems have an extremely simple solution, you know. All you require is one lawyer, and the study tour can continue, surely. But there is no one else with the necessary qualifications, Mr. Sholmes. We know of no other lawyer. The voyage to London still promises a good month of time. Ample opportunity, I would say, to find yourselves another suitable lawyer. Hey, Hunter. Good morning to you. So, you manipulated me? I've often remarked on the extraordinary lengths to which friendship will drive a man. I was quite sure that you would rise to the challenge for your late friend. I don't believe it. But if it was all contrived... I mean, what happened was treated by the authorities as murder. A woman who was mistakenly arrested as the perpetrator. A woman was mistakenly arrested as the perpetrator. What do you suppose became of her? Naturally, I didn't allow the misapprehension to have any serious repercussions. I subsequently explained everything and assisted the unfortunate soul in finding the foreign refuge she sought. I seem to remember Miss Susato and I had some rather strong words for her. Well, she was certainly not devoid of all guilt. She deserved every word, I'm sure. I wonder if she made it to America then. I'm afraid I simply cannot comprehend it. Why would you go to such lengths, Mr. Sholmes? Why were you so determined to stop Kazuma-sama from reaching Britain? The truth is, 12 months ago, there was already a very tangible omen of the impending tragedy, you see. Oh! An omen that, at this very moment in time, is close at hand. An omen of all these tragic events that already existed a year ago is close at hand? We need to find out exactly what Mr. Sholmes knows. But apparently he's not going to talk to us. Is there anyone else hanging around that we can talk to? No. I guess we're going to need to present something to Sholmes. Something from a year ago? No, that's still 10 years ago. Should I just work my way through and present everything to Sholmes? My armband! Mr. Sholmes, would you mind looking at this? This is hardly the time, Mr. Naruhodo, as I'm sure you will appreciate. Oh, no, of course not. My attention is entirely drawn to one single matter now, the pheasant. Anyone would think you haven't eaten in weeks. Okay, I'm actually going to think about it now. Omen. Well, maybe it's related to the Asogi papers. Nope. Now I am going to work through everything. Though some of these are definitely not relevant. It's going to take ages actually if I do all of these. I know I keep flip-flopping about this. Let's just look at all of my evidence. I don't think the Red-Headed League article is going to do anything for us. Yeah, we just established that. The photograph of Mr. Vigil, no. The letter of introduction, no. Vigil's a dismissal notice. No. Framed photograph of Mrs. Vigil, also no. The policeman, no. Oh, apparently I can look at this. Probably something I already had. Yeah, I think this is indeed the same actual thing as before. Candelabrum. That's not going to help us. The revolver. Unlikely. The old photograph. Let's try that. No. The autopsy report for Gregson, no. Crime scene floor plan, no. The notice board. Maybe the notice board. Nope. Firecracker, nah. Photograph, nah. The pocket watch. Inspector Gregson's ID. Nah. Photograph of when we all arrived. Probably no. Soggy papers, no. Gregson's trunk. Probably no. Clint Van Zeek's autopsy report. We're not going to get anything from the Lucky Charm, but I just like looking at it. Karama. It's unlikely to be the Omen. Evacuation trails. I'm lost. And honestly, I really don't want to spend the amount of time that would be required to go through all of the things. Okay. I'm supposed to present him back this telegram. There was no room for doubt with your instructions in this telegram, Mr. Sholmes. You were very clear that it was Judge Shigoku's office that should be searched, so... You obviously knew that's where the list of names would be found. K. Asogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson. But we only learned of those 4 names just over 6 months ago now. And only because they appeared as part of the top-secret government communications that were leaked. That's true, yes, but at the time you were unaware of the background. You see, those 4 names were wired to Japan. Around 6 months before that. Approximately this time last year, in fact, when you were both still in Japan. Really? It really would be hypocrisy on my part to reprove others for intercepting state secrets. Because after all, I'm perpetually eavesdropping on communications between the British and Japanese governments. Why? You're perpetually doing what? How? Never mind the details, but you should know. No secret is safe from Sherlock Sholmes when he has designs on knowing it. Oh my, Mr. Sholmes! What a fabulous line! Now, 1 month after that list of 4 names was wired to the recipient Jigoku in Japan, Dr. John H. Wilson was murdered. Yes. As soon as I learned of the incident, a hypothesis rapidly took shape in my mind. As it turned out, I was partly correct and partly mistaken. Nevertheless, it was the beginning of all the tragic events that were to follow. Yeah, but if Wilson was killed in Japan, why did he want to send Kazuma back to Japan anyway? Mr. Sholmes, please, tell us all you know. Tell us about these 4 names and the tragedy to which they're all somehow connected. Hey, 4 names. As I said, when I learned of Dr. Wilson's murder in Japan, my mind immediately turned to those 4 names, because you see, there was someone else on the list who I believed to be recently deceased. Someone else? What? Who? A Shin, as it was transcribed in the Japanese script. In actual fact, Miss Asa Shin. That was a familiar name to me. She was a professional killer, well known among London's unsavoury classes. Oh, I see. Wait. There's a difference in the number of M's there. But she had completely vanished from existence several months before Wilson's murder. So I came to the logical conclusion that she had herself been killed. And accordingly I became fearful for the lives of the 2 remaining persons on the list. Ah, Kayasogi and T. Gregson. Owing to our proximity, I decided to take measures to protect Gregson myself. But I determined it would be safest if younger Sogi were to stay away from Britain. Ah, so that's why you went to such lengths to prevent his study tour from going ahead. Exactly. So, you already knew who Kazuma-sama was, Mr. Sholmes? Oh yes, Sholmes and I have exchanged correspondence for years. I'd recounted many tales about Asogi to him in my letters, and the news of Dr. Wilson's death, of course. So, Dr. Wilson is dead then? Oh no! Iris is only just finding this out. It's a good thing she still doesn't believe that Wilson's her dad, though. But I didn't know. Oh, Iris. I know he wasn't my daddy, but still. That's very sad. I'm so sorry, Iris. We knew the significance of the name, obviously, but we just couldn't bring ourselves to tell you. No. Oh no, we've made Iris sad and also maybe mad at us. But what you just told us, Mr. Sholmes, doesn't completely tie in with the facts. There's one big hole in your hypothesis. A big hole, Mr. Naruhodo? Yeah, the fact Shin wasn't dead. Ah yes, you mean about Asa Shin, I presume. Oh, of course! Exactly. She wasn't killed, was she? She was in Japan, posing as a visiting student under the assumed name of Jesiel Bratt. I'm glad you're keeping up, my dear fellow. But I only became aware of that fact 2 days ago in the foyer of the Great Waterloo Hotel, when you were eavesdropping on us. And upon hearing that startling revelation, the hypothesis that I'd formed surrounding those 4 names was completely turned topsy. Oops. Knocked my headphone cable there. Pulled it out, put that plug end on the other side. Give me a sec. I'm gonna need to go and fix that so that I can hear the music. And I'm back. Yeah, Sholmes is very extra. What? Topsy? As in topsy-turvy and all upside down, huh? What do you mean when you say your hypothesis was turned topsy, Mr. Sholmes? I had believed all 4 names on the list to be the names of victims. Yeah, I think he's about to get to a theory that I just had. In that, if A. Shin killed J. Wilson, then does that mean that Kei Asogi killed T. Gregson? However, I was mistaken. Very much so, Asa Shin was a killer. I mean, she also got killed. So this telegram is a list of both victims and killers, is that? Indeed, and it would seem that Miss Shin was dispatched from Britain with the sole intention of dispatching Dr. Wilson. Her visiting student status being merely a front. By which you mean that Kei Asogi was dispatched from Japan to kill T. Gregson, then? As a visiting student. Ah! Which would of course explain why no motive could be determined for her actions. So the real reason Dr. Wilson was killed by Asa Shin is because he was the target of an assassination? And forearmed with that knowledge, fresh consideration of this telegram puts the list in a very different perspective. What do you mean? Well, does it not strike you there is another among the 4 who subsequently became a visiting student? Wait, you mean... But of course, a name you know only too well. You mean Kazuma? Oh! He did say in court earlier today. Yes, on 31st of October I accompanied Inspector Gregson to Dunkirk in order to carry out a mission. And the mission was the assassination of the Mark. Yeah, he didn't specify which Mark, did he? Young Mr. Asogi accepted that mission a year ago now. Certainly not. In conclusion, this document is a contract of sorts. An international agreement, one might say, detailing an assassin exchange. An assassin exchange? How could Casimir possibly have got involved in something like that? Let's assume that we have two parties, each wishing to dispose of a distinct individual. Those two parties make a contract to swap their respective assassination targets. That would then be an assassin exchange. And also would make it harder to track it back, motive-wise. So, to begin with, the British assassin is dispatched as a visiting student to Japan, where she kills her target. And then the Japanese assassin is dispatched as a visiting student to Britain in order to eliminate his target. It certainly does sound like an exchange. But what on earth is the point? Don't forget, Naruhodo, that the British assassin at least escaped conviction, thanks to diplomatic immunity afforded by consular jurisdiction. Oh yes. Such jurisdiction should be null and void under the terms of the new treaty between our two countries. So the fact that it was brought into play suggests intervention at the very highest levels. The highest levels. These murders were two sides of the same coin, linked not by a common motive, but by contractual agreements. Yeah, I think I've heard about a case like that before now. As such, they appeared utterly unrelated, yet in truth, the assassins were complicit in one singular, devilish scheme. That disassociation and the safeguard of diplomatic immunity were, I believe, the motivation behind this plot. Wait a minute, Sholmes. If this telegram really is describing the exchange of assassins as you're suggesting, it would mean that the Japanese killer's target was never Seishiro Jigoku at all. It would mean Asogi's target was actually Inspector Gregson. What? Kazuma was here for Gregson? So Judge Shigoku wasn't actually the mark? I mean, Judge Shigoku may have been Gregson's mark. Yes, that's exactly what it would mean. I hold myself personally responsible for failing to keep the inspector safe. Mr. Sholmes. I told him of my fears and implored him to seek a transfer to an overseas position. Is that why he was going to France? Obviously with the young pickpocket in tow. Yes, Gina. Come to think of it, Inspector Gregson did mention that to us at the Great Exhibition. That he'd be transferring to the Paris police and taking Gina with him. But without informing me, he engaged in one last assignment, it seems. And sadly, it turned out to be his very last. This is too much to take in. All right, everyone. That's quite enough of all that serious talk for one day. Isn't it, Hurley? I mean, look at the time. Ah, quite right, Iris. We must conclude our preparations for tomorrow. What preparations? Well, I think I shall make my way back to my hotel room now. This has certainly been a night to remember. It is a little bit sad, though. I mean, I like the idea of you being my daddy. Because then Susie would have been my big sister. I'm sorry, Iris. I know, Iris. I was thinking quite the same thing. Were you? But if somebody like me would be worthy, I would be delighted to become your sister. What? Really? Oh yes, without question. So, you'll teach me all the ways you know to throw runners to the floor? Yes, of course. It would be my pleasure. You didn't have to agree quite so readily. Oh, but wait a minute. If Susie's gonna be my big sister, you can be my big brother if you want, Reno. Sure. Huh? I mean, yes, of course. If you'll have me, I'll gladly be your brother. Well done, Iris. We must always be mindful of feelings. It raised you so well. Because being sensitive is your strong suit, naturally. Right, I'm going to work extra hard for tomorrow now, because it's for my big brother and sister. We adopted a little sister. What is all this talk about preparing for tomorrow? Preparing what? You'll just have to wait and see. Oh. Yeah, a genius little sister. Yes, indeed. Good luck in court tomorrow. I'm expecting a sterling performance. I'll do my very best, of course. So the overnight break in the trial's proceedings became a crucial turning point, exposing new truths while posing new conundrums. That list of 4 names on the telegram in Judge Shigoku's office, and the extraordinary assassination plot in which my best friend had somehow become involved. I felt as though I'd been plunged into an even greater darkness all of a sudden. But at the same time, I felt sure I would see the light again soon. Because I was lucky enough to have the most wonderful family in the world standing steadfastly behind me. To be continued. To be continued right now, because we have so much more time today. Let's see. November, 9:30 AM, the Old Bailey courtroom. Before we begin today, I have a brief announcement. As with the closed trial 10 years ago, some astonishing facts have come to light in these proceedings. The revelation that the well-known Reaper is actually an organization illegally executing its own brand of justice, and the discovery that a respected yard inspector was at its heart until he himself perished in an assassination plot. Well, I say to all members of the judiciary here present on this occasion, that we will stop at nothing to uncover the whole truth behind these disturbing findings. Yeah, exactly, Strongheart. The whole truth. counsels you will undertake this trial with the resolve to pursue the truth to the bitter end. Resolve, yes. That's my intention. My lord, if I may inquire. The defendant may speak. On what grounds is Kazuma Asogi permitted to continue in his role as prosecutor? He has admitted to colluding with the victim in a plot to assassinate an innocent man. He shouldn't be enjoying the privilege of freedom, let alone be leading the prosecution. That's a good point. I submitted a written petition to Lord Strongheart, requesting that judgment of my transgressions be delayed by 1 day. You did what? In today's proceedings, I intend to expose everything. My whole life for the last 10 years has all been leading up to this 1 day. Kazuma, whatever the outcome of this trial, I give my word that I will accept whatever punishment is deemed appropriate, however severe. And I suggest you prepare yourself for the same, Reaper. Kazuma is bristling with hostility today. I get the distinct impression we're heading into very dangerous territory. Is that really even Kazuma-sama standing before us? You know, thinking about it, I'm guessing Kazuma accepted being Gregson's assassin, given that it was Gregson that was the reason that his father got convicted as the professor in the first place, right? Because it was Gregson who pushed for an autopsy of Clint Van Zieks' body. Found an important clue. As an extreme exception to normal practices, I have granted this prosecutor's request. The defense finds this acceptable, I presume. I'm gonna have to. Yes, my lord. In that case, in the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session again. We resume the closed hearing of Barak von Zieks. The defense is ready, my lord. The prosecution is more than ready. Very well then, this preamble has taken long enough. Prosecutor Asogi, begin. As you wish, my lord. The prosecution calls the first witness to the stand. Bring Seishiro Jigoku into the courtroom. At last then, we've reached the final battle. He's putting literally everything on the line now in order to get to the truth. Come on, Ryunosuke. It's time for that steely resolve. Because this is going to test it to the limit. Witness, state your name and occupation for the court. Ah. So it was you who issued this, was it? Your subpoena. I did what was necessary. Well, look what the young man has become. I didn't think I'd see the day when you'd take that tone with me, I must say. The witness will ensure his responses are pertinent to the questions asked. My name is Seishiro Jigoku, a Supreme Court judge from the Empire of Japan. 16 years ago, this man came to London as a visiting student. 6 years later, he returned to Japan. as well as presiding over the wow, words. Wait. Have a drink. As well as presiding over the... No. I still got some. As well as presiding over the Supreme Court, he is also currently Japan's Minister of Foreign Affairs. I am, of course, fully aware of Mr. Jigoku and his preeminent roles. Indeed, Honza, that is true. I do in fact live in England. And this game is also set there. I invited him personally to the International Forensic Science Symposium as a representative of his country. I hear he also played a key role in the conclusion of the Anglo-Japanese Treaty of Friendship and Navigation. It was a great honour to be involved in the negotiations. I put my all into that treaty. Judge Shigoku, I must ask. Well, I never. Fancy the young murdering student turning up here of all places. Not a murderer. You acquitted me yourself. And now I'm a practicing defense lawyer. Yes, and full of self-importance like your friend across the courtroom, I see. You came here to London by invitation to the International Forensic Science Symposium. But then, without informing anyone of your plans, you took flight to France. Took flight? I'd have to object to that turn of phrase. On the basis that you took a boat, I assume. Then explain yourself. What exactly were the circumstances? Well, I was somewhat expecting this. And I'm sorry to say, I decline to comment. You never heard anything after the Queen died. So Queen Elizabeth II's son, Charles, is now king. I mean, it's not like the monarchy is ever actually in charge, really. So, we now have King Charles III. But the people who are actually in charge is yeah, the government, which I shouldn't get political, but I don't like them. The land of fries, chocolate, and beer. You forgot waffles, Nick. Waffles are also important. Fun fact, I collect fridge magnets when I visit places, and the fridge magnets I came back from Belgium with basically has like 4 shops: fries, chocolate, beer, and waffles. It's like, yes, that's perfect. Yeah, the government also had a number of changes, that's true. It's still the same government, though, it's just with a different prime minister. What? Leaving the country prematurely when I was an invited guest may be questionable etiquette. But my decision is unrelated to this case. I can't be bound to testify. I think it's related. I think it's highly related. Unrelated, you say? Given that I have the feeling that Inspector Gregson was killed in your cabin on that ship, I think it's entirely irrelevant, sir. I appreciate that a respected police officer has been killed, for which I offer my condolences. However, being an alien, I'd obviously never met the man. Really? Never met the man, eh? Nor do I know the first thing about him. It's fine. You didn't really ask about politics. I was the one who ended up bringing it up. You know, just on the basis that the monarchy has literally no control. As such, I'm in no position to testify. It's as simple as that. So you would run from all this? I beg your pardon. This case is more far-reaching than the murder of Inspector Gregson. It has ties to another murder, a case that was tried in Japan almost a year ago now. A year ago in Japan. The murder of Dr. John H. Wilson, you mean? That's right, and you, Judge Shigaku, are at the heart of both cases. The defense has evidence to prove it. Well, Ryunosuke, I see from the look in your eyes that you're resolved to carry this through to the very end, too. Let's see your evidence, then. What proof do you have that Seishiro Jigoku is involved in this case? This telegram.
Take that!
This is a telegram detailing a communication sent between Britain and Japan approximately 1 year ago. The communication contained 4 names: K. Asogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, and J. Wilson. You little... Where did you get that? In Tokyo. From your office, Judge Shigaku. What? How on earth did you... What's all this about? Why is my name on that list? This list of 4 names follows a certain pattern. T. Gregson and J. Wilson are the names of victims. K. Asogi and A. Shin are the names of assassins. No. A year ago in Tokyo, Dr. John H. Wilson's life was taken in a Western-style restaurant in the capital. The culprit was found to be a visiting student who went by the name of Jezaiel Brett. But her real name was Asa Shin, a professional killer sent on a mission to kill from Great Britain. A. Shin and her victim J. Wilson, and the murder that just took place here in London was the counterpart to that crime. An assassin sent from Japan, also a visiting student, Kazuma Asogi, whose victim was the British police inspector Tobias Gregson. K. Asogi and T. Gregson. One assassin from each country to kill a target residing in the other. What exactly is the defense suggesting? That Kazuma killed Gregson? Or that Kazuma was supposed to kill Gregson, didn't, and Jigoku did it instead? These 2 cases of murder, one that took place in Britain and one in Japan, were masterminded by a pair of individuals from each country as a form of assassin exchange. And you know, I suppose if we're accusing Jigoku of being involved in this, We're probably also accusing Strongheart. And the telegram the defense has acquired is proof of this international contract to kill. What? What? The telegram was found in your office, Judge Jigoku. In other words, the mastermind in Japan was you. Judge Shigoku, what's all this about? And you, Kazuma, you lied. He only lied by omission. During yesterday's proceedings, you acknowledged that you'd accepted the assassination mission. But the mark wasn't Judge Shigoku at all. It was T. Gregson, Detective Inspector of Scotland Yard, as shown by the name on the killing contract. Very impressive, Ryunosuke. But actually, I didn't lie. The name of the target I was ordered to kill never passed my lips yesterday. Strongheart is the guy in the judge's chair in this case. The idea that Seishiro Jigoku was the mark came entirely from you. You deliberately avoided saying a name? The defense claims these 4 names indicate some sort of international assassin exchange. I'm sure I speak for all present when I say that the very idea seems utterly absurd. Well, Mr. Jigoku, what do you have to say for yourself? Jigoku, admit it! Take Strongheart down with you! His silence only goes to prove his guilt. There's another very important point that this new development brings to light. There's now a distinct possibility that the scene of Inspector Gregson's actual murder was in the witness's cabin aboard the SS Grouse. Judge Shigoku, you have to testify now. To refuse would put you in contempt of court. There's no need for quite such a vicious stare, young man. Very well then. As a parting gift to you all, I'll tell you everything I know. It seems this Japanese gentleman has information that the court must hear about the alleged assassin exchange and the events of the night of the 31st of October. Present your formal testimony now. As you wish, my lord. The assassin exchange. It's true that Kazuma Asogi was assigned the assassination mission 1 year ago now. The target was Inspector T. Gregson. That was a condition of the British study tour. However, in the end, something happened that meant the young man was unable to carry out his mission. On the evening in question, a member of the crew was on duty outside my cabin at all times. If there'd been a shot fired, the crewman would have heard it, so clearly I can't be involved. Oh, really, sir? So you admit it then, as this communication suggests. There really was an assassin exchange arrangement between Britain and Japan. A political endeavour at the highest levels, not something I can discuss here. To use such a worthy practice as foreign study to coerce someone to commit murder? It's the most appalling thing I've ever heard. Appalling? Well, it's easy to judge. Pardon? So he had a reason for taking his sword to that British inspector, you know. What? Which is why he accepted the mission in the first place. Isn't that right, Counsel? Yeah, because it was Gregson's evidence that put his father away for murder. Kazuma-sama? Judge Shigoku, if you were the mastermind behind this operation in Japan, then tell the court the identity of your counterpart in Britain. Yeah, Shigoku, if you're going down for this, you might as well take the other side down with you. I'm not obliged to divulge that information. As I said yesterday, I've killed nobody. I freely admit that I accepted the mission, but on the night the plan was to be executed, I backed out. In short, this assassin exchange that the defense has identified is unrelated to the events of this case. I think it is, because I guess Shigoku decided to do it for you. The crucial point is this. Your police inspector can't have perished aboard that steamship in Dunkirk. Because if he'd been shot in the cabin, it's inconceivable that a member of the crew wouldn't have heard it. Well, you see, Judge Shigoku, I have evidence that proves that it could have happened. That there's a way that a crewman wouldn't have heard. That's right. Gregson was killed after returning to London, in the room on Fresno Street. And the perpetrator of the crime was the Reaper, Barak von Zeeks. The prosecution's accusation remains unchanged. Yeah, I'm guessing that Strongheart has something on him. Is it going to turn out that Shigoku was actually the professor all along? That Asogi's father wasn't? And took the fall? To think that a seemingly innocent foreign exchange program was a facade for such Machiavellian dealings. Clearly it's a plot only a government minister and high-ranking judge such as the witness could hope to execute. Yeah, a government minister and high-ranking judge. Strongheart? Well, I seem to recall it was someone on the British side who controlled everything. Be that as it may, it is not the place of this court to pursue this villainous assassin exchange plot. You would say that, wouldn't you? We are concerned only with the tangible events pertaining to the murder of Inspector Gregson. Is the defense clear on that point, counsel? No. No, I'm not. Yes, my lord. I'll keep that in mind as I cross-examine the witness. Now, even though I know what I'm presenting and to what, I'm still gonna do the press all the things.
Hold it!
A year ago, when Kazuma was still in Japan then. Correct. It was at the examination center for applicants for the study tour that I approached him. I'll never forget it. I remember exactly what you said. You just came out and asked me forthright if I'd consider travelling to Britain on an assassination mission. Surely not! I thought it was a joke at first, of course, but then it was made clear to me that if I didn't accept, I wouldn't be considered for the study tour. So you agreed to it just for that? I mean, I know how much you wanted to study in England, but assassination? The Empire of Japan had accepted a proposal from the British Empire at the time. An agreement to send a student from each country to the others to deepen cultural understanding and friendship. But behind the scenes, the chosen students were to be given assassination missions. I had no choice but to accept the proposal that originated from my British counterpart. Why? Why did you expose the plot there and then? Britain acknowledges no part in these alleged misbegotten dealings. I advise you not to make spurious allegations, Foreign Minister Jigoku. As a witness, I am bound to tell the truth, my lord. Anyway, I picked Asogi and explained the details of the plan to him.
Hold it!
Why Kazuma? Why did you pick him as the assassin? He was the most capable of all the applicants, and in addition, I knew his desire to travel to Britain was very strong. In fact, it was almost more than a desire. It was his whole purpose in life. Yes, as his best friend, I can certainly attest to that. The way he threw himself into his studies, the way he pursued becoming qualified as a lawyer. It was all ultimately for that one single goal of being accepted on a study tour to Britain. And of course we knew the reason behind that. He was determined to find out for himself the truth about his father, Genshin Asogi. There's nothing I wouldn't have done to get here. Be that agreeing to assume the role of an assassin, or betraying people's trust. Well, you certainly did a fine job of betraying mine, Asogi. But why was Inspector Gregson the target? I have no idea. Those were orders from Britain. I was in no position to question them. You have no idea, really. I find that hard to believe. Oh, do you? Judge Shigoku was once a visiting student here in Britain himself, of course. Perhaps he has some connection with Inspector Gregson from that time. The defense really ought to catch up. With what? With the fact the assassin exchange has absolutely nothing to do with the case under scrutiny here. Aside from the fact that the dead man is on that bloody list. Yes, I've already admitted to recruiting Asogi.
Hold it!
I presume you're referring to the incident that occurred during Kazuma's passage to Britain in January. The awful tragedy that took place on the steamship. Word arrived at the Ministry some 2 weeks after the ship's departure from our shores. The visiting student had been killed, but his body had somehow gone missing in Hong Kong. The news was wired to me from a detective I'd placed on the ship to accompany the assassin. Obviously, Kazuma didn't actually die at all. But he did lose his memory, including all details about his special mission. Did you not consider dispatching another assassin at that point? That wasn't possible, simply because that black-clad young student over there had already put himself forward as Asogi's replacement. And there was no way to stop him from reaching Britain. Ah! My hands were completely tied. So Mr. Sholmes' strategy worked perfectly. He predicted everything that would happen. Months later, my memory returned. but I'd never intended to go through with the assassination mission anyway. So you were playing me right from the outset, were you? Is that it? I'd sooner be guilty of that crime than of taking someone else's life. I was prepared to do whatever I had to do in order to get myself here to Britain. This line of questioning has gone on long enough. All the court should be concerned about in the testimony given by this witness are details relating to his relationship with Inspector Gregson and the victim's murder. In that case, as I've already made perfectly clear, I had no connection to the man or his death. And you have some means of substantiating this plea?
Hold it!
Outside your cabin in the first-class area of the SS Grouse, you mean? Yes, that's right. Not least because there was a murder of a student passenger earlier in the year, I imagine. The liner operators have taken to posting a crewman outside every first-class cabin door. I can confirm the presence of the crewman guard myself. What do you mean? Because I accompanied Inspector Gregson to Dunkirk that night, I witnessed it with my own eyes. There was a well-built crewman standing guard directly outside the door to the witness's cabin. At that particular time, of course, I'd gone to the ship's dining room for dinner. The inspector and I asked the crewman to allow us into the cabin while we waited for Judge Jigoku's return. I suppose Inspector Gregson was there in his capacity as the Reaper. He was intending to take the witness's life. Exactly. As I've said numerous times now, I had no intention of killing anyone. So the crewman let two potential assassins into the cabin he was supposed to be guarding? Not the most convincing of sentries, really. In truth, those were my thoughts too. But anyway, I stayed to talk with Inspector Gregson for a short while, and then I left him there and made my way off the ship alone. Was the guard still at the door when you went? Yes, he glared at me as I walked past. You see, that proves it. Yeah, it doesn't. How's the case going? I think it's going okay. Right, I know what I'm presenting to this, but I still want to press it.
Hold it!
The crewman who was standing directly outside your cabin door, you mean? That's right. A muscular man with a permanent grim expression on his face. He didn't once move from that spot. To be honest, I thought he was a miserable fellow. But as it happens, he's a vital witness now. And there's no doubt that Gregson was killed by a gunshot. And it's inconceivable that a crewman standing just outside the cabin door wouldn't have heard that. Oh wait! What about the ship's enormous steam engines? The noise of them could have drowned out the sound of a gun being fired. Not so sure, Suzato. Sadly, young judicial assistant, that won't wash. Because they were currently parked, and the steam and the engine weren't going. Oh? You will recall my cabin was on the first-class area of the ship, which is, of course, the quietest. Also, you were at a dock. I just feel like that's the more important part. Don't imagine for a moment it's anything like the steerage where the judicial assistants go. I didn't mean... But a hole like that made by a bullet was found in your cabin, Judge Jigoku. That's compelling evidence that a gun was fired in there. What's that? A bullet hole? Oh yes, you're talking about what the detective uncovered in the wall yesterday, I presume. That was obviously a rotten panel eaten out by woodworm. No doubt he didn't find an actual bullet. That's the hole in the argument. Sadly, I was unable to arrange for the crewman to be brought back to Britain with me. But obviously, if a gun had been fired in my cabin on the night in question, as the defence implies, I would have been arrested on the spot and would have never made it to Britain in the first place. Very true. The witness's logic is sound. Since no gunshot was heard from the witness's cabin on the night in question, we must assume that the witness is telling the truth. Must we? I'm glad you've seen sense, my lord. I know Kazuma's already admitted to taking on this incredible assassination plot, but even so, hearing it confirmed by somebody else is still a real shock. Silent methods don't exist in this game. Well, yeah, the thing is, this game is set in about 1900. So, I mean, I don't know the history of gun silencers. It's unforgivable! Kazuma-sama's feelings to manipulate him into agreeing with such a despicable plan. But I think Kazuma manipulated Judge Shigoku too. He completely double-crossed him. Oh dear, it's hard not to see that as a stroke of brilliance on Kazuma-sama's part. One way or another though, Gregson ended up dead. I really think that the murder must have happened aboard that steamship. So you mean... Judge Shigoku must be lying. Alright, so I guess the silencer may have existed. I know I shouldn't let my emotions cloud my judgment. I mean, also equally, a silencer doesn't actually make a gunshot silent, it just makes it quieter. So, there is that. I mean, as far as I'm aware anyway, it doesn't actually silence it. But you must destroy him, Mr. Naruhodo. Yeah, working on it. On the evening in question, the member of the crew was out on duty. Actually, I need to present it to this one, I think. The evacuation drill itinerary.
Objection!
Yes, as the court has heard, there was a crewman posted outside Judge Shigoku's cabin. However, we can be sure that, contrary to the witness's claim, the guard wasn't there at all times. What? I have here a notice of a particular event that was scheduled to take place aboard the steamship on the 31st. What? Where did you get that? You're trash. It's evidence gathered by Mr. Herlock Sholmes. You were acquainted yesterday, if you remember. Herlock Sholmes again. According to this itinerary, after leaving the port of Dunkirk, at exactly 10 PM, and for a period of 20 minutes, all crewmen of the SS Grouse were to gather on deck for an evacuation drill. All crewmen were away from their posts. And during that 20-minute interval, of course, any gunshots emanating from your cabin would have been heard by no one. In summary, Judge Shigoku, you had ample opportunity to commit the crime. Yeah, Judge Shigoku, admit it already. A 20-minute window of opportunity. That's an excellent find, Ryunosuke. But it amounts to nothing. Why? Because the witness clearly stated in his testimony that no incident occurred in his cabin. Unless you have some decisive evidence that can show his testimony to be false. Yes, I have a part of Inspector Gregson's pocket watch that broke in your cabin, Jigaku. Yeah. Your accusation is nothing more than conjecture. Very true. Well, counsel. Inspector Gregson was killed in Judge Shigaku's cabin that night. I'm certain of it. Because the defense has evidence to prove it. You will present the evidence for the defense at once, counsel. What proof do you have that the victim's life was taken in Jigaku's cabin on the 31st of October?
Take that!
Judge Jigaku, this was found in your cabin yesterday. What is that? The crown of a pocket watch? A pocket watch? And if you observe, the victim's pocket watch, which we know he treasured, is missing precisely that part. It can't be. Moreover, this crown is a perfect fit on the spindle protruding from the victim's watch. Now, the fact this was retrieved from Judge Shigaku's cabin tells us that the victim's watch almost certainly broke there. Oh yeah, when was that evacuation drill anyway? Yeah, that was 10 PM. Gregson's pocket... But why did Gregson's pocket watch stop at 5? I mean, we assumed it stopped when it broke. Oh no, wait, no. Because it was still going after it broke. It just wound down then. That was it. In other words, the victim was killed on the 31st during the 20-minute evacuation drill in the cabin occupied by you, Judge Shigaku. Well, you're razor sharp, aren't you, my young murderer?
Objection!
Expertly maneuvered, Ryunosuke. And your argument sounds entirely plausible. At first. But rather like this pocket watch, it's full of cracks. What? And I believe Judge Shigaku feels the same way. He seems awfully happy. I was wrong to acquit you earlier in the year. Sorry? If I'd known that it would result in anyone having to listen to this drivel, I would have declared you guilty just to spare the world your ridiculous bombast. Hey Jigaku, are you forgetting that if I'd been guilty, then Kazuma wouldn't have made it over here? And you wanted that to happen? I think it's clear that the witness will have to give further testimony. When you hear what actually happened in my cabin that night, you'll notice the pitfall into which you've stumbled. Prior to your renewed testimony, I would like to clarify one point. The fact that this part of the victim's watch was discovered in your cabin means that you acknowledge he was there, I presume. Yes, I do. Very well then. You may proceed to give your formal testimony about what exactly happened in your cabin aboard the ship on the evening of the 31st of October. Of course, as a man of the law, I have no intention of obstructing justice. before he starts this new testimony, I'm going to take a quick break to get more water, switch the lights on, and things like that. So I will be right back. I return. Yeah, this case really is tying up everything over these 2 games, I think. Just all of the things. The events in the cabin. I had a guest waiting for me when I returned to my cabin after finishing my evening meal in the dining room. When I walked through the door, a mustachioed Englishman was there, foolishly waving a gun at me. I soon took care of him with an Ippon-seoi throw, though. He couldn't wait to run away after that. I imagine his watch was broken when I threw him over my shoulder. It has nothing to do with his murder. You'd have really hurt him if you chucked him over your shoulder and he didn't know how to break fall and you were throwing him on a hard surface. The inspector was clearly killed having returned to Britain, because his body was found in London. doubt. If Hon say, a common jujitsu martial arts technique in my country. I was careful not to use too much force, but the man obviously landed too heavily for his watch to take. Is Shigoku saying he could outspeed a gun? I think Shigoku's saying that Inspector Gregson wasn't really cut out for it. Which I can believe. But man, I have been shoulder thrown onto mats, and while I know how to break fall, and it's still something. I can't believe you didn't hurt him that much. I guess you can be careful about it, but I doubt you'd be being careful about it if someone was waving a gun at you. Also, there are probably way easier ways of dealing that than shoulder throwing a guy. Well, I suppose you grab the arm that's waving the gun and just go for it. Dunno. That's why one of the very first things you learn when you're doing judo is how to fall without hurting yourself. There's a lot of, one, practicing how to do the break falls on the mat without being thrown, and two, getting thrown onto a crash mat. Getting thrown onto a crash mat is pretty fun, really. But I mean, even those don't really prepare you for how fast you end up on the ground when you're actually doing it at a competitive level. Trust me. One moment you're on your feet, the next moment you're flat on your back. I did competitive judo. I wasn't good at it. I am not really a particularly sporty person. I'm just the person who's done a lot of sports that she's been really bad at. I mean, I could fling you across the room, but I wouldn't. Because as I said, you know, you could really hurt someone who doesn't know what they're doing. So I would never throw someone who didn't know what they were doing. It was kind of fun, actually, when because several years later on, I did some jiu-jitsu at uni. And I remember, because jiu-jitsu includes the throws as well. And I do remember the session where we learnt the hip throw in jiu-jitsu being paired with a guy who was a lot taller than me and fairly broad, and you could tell he was not expecting me to throw him. You could tell. But that's the thing. Throwing people is kind of all about center of balance, and if he's taller than me, my center of balance is lower. He went over real easy. And I was very careful about it because having realized that he wasn't expecting me to lift him off the ground, I knew he wasn't prepared to actually break his fall properly. Jiu-jitsu, I can't remember if there was weapons in jiu-jitsu. I know there was punches and kicks. We did do some weapon-based combat in Wushu. Hi, yes, I have studied a lot of martial arts. Anyway. Aside over. So, Ryunosuke Naruhodo. I imagine you can see the flaw in your logic now, can't you? What? The fact that the pocket watch was broken in the witness's cabin in no way proves that the victim's murder took place there. I mean, it doesn't have to have been murder, it could have been manslaughter. You could have thrown him onto his back and the gun could have accidentally discharged into him. He could have been killed by his own gun. Shigaku doesn't have to have held the gun himself. Yeah. I've no doubt the inspector intended to kill me. But he didn't manage to pull the trigger. Yes, because he was merely the tactician, not the Reaper's hand of death. Well, the testimony appears to make perfect sense as far as I can tell. Yeah, I mean, he could have just gone for self-defense. I mean, we've already established that Gregson was intending on having him killed. He could just say, yeah, I accidentally killed the guy in self-defense. You know. But he's not going to do that, because Lord Strongheart really wants Van Zieks to go down for this. And he's pulling on some strings somehow, I swear. Let me express my deep gratitude for your understanding, my lord. But if this testimony holds, Judge Shigaku will have been deemed to have no involvement in the case. Well, counsel, I really see no reason for wasting precious court time here on a cross-examination. Of course you don't, because you don't want to be found out. Sorry, my lord, the defense has a right to cross-examine, and I don't intend to squander that. You're an embarrassment to your countrymen, not knowing when you're beaten. Back at ya! In that case, proceed, Mr. Naruhodo. The events in the cabin. Okay, let's press all the things and try and get something.
Hold it!
Because I don't have an obvious thing for this yet. Because the so-called guard posted at your cabin door just let your killer pass, you mean? Apparently, Gregson told the crewman he was a police inspector. Which was the truth, of course. He wouldn't have had his identification with him, though. Yeah, because he lent that to Vigil. He had his trench coat and mustache, not to mention the bag of chips. I imagine the crewman was convinced. Do all detective inspectors consume vast quantities of fish and chips? Did he take fish and chips with him to France? Or did he buy fish and chips in France? I must know. He must have bought the fish and chips in Dunkirk, right? Yeah, they definitely have chippies there. They're by the sea, after all. man accompanying him would have had two swords slung around his waist. You mean me? Who else? It wouldn't surprise you if he makes it himself. I mean, that requires an awful lot of hot oil, though. You think he's just carrying that around? Yes, that's true. You would have hoped the sight of a few swords might have set off alarm bells in the guard's head. The point is, I left the cabin before its occupant returned, and I immediately disembarked the ship. Certainly, all I can tell you is only the inspector was waiting for me when I arrived back at my cabin. And you entered without an inkling of suspicion? That's right, none whatsoever.
Hold it!
Obviously, you're talking about Inspector Gregson. Yes, though at the time I didn't know the man's name. And there was no time for introductions. I value my life over manners. By which you mean that the inspector was there to assassinate you, I suppose. That was certainly the impression given by the gun pointing in my direction. He's lucky to have been killed by Jigaku with all the chips he's had. I think cholesterol would have done him in. I mean, although to be fair to the man, he probably does a lot of walking around as a London copper. So, maybe he needs all of those chips. For calories. But I've never seen the muzzle of a revolver shake about so much in all my life. Anyone would think the man had never shot somebody before. Yeah, probably. There's not much opportunity to shoot people as a British policeman. I mean, maybe there isn't that in the 1900s, I don't know. Believe it or not, most of us haven't. Anyway, there was no time to call for the help of the crewman at the door, so I dealt with the man myself.
Hold it!
Even though the man had a gun, that was a very brave move, wasn't it? Ha! My Ibonze is far faster than a bullet, I can assure you. You don't know how fast bullets travel, do you, Jigaku? But surely all of that commotion caused the crewman to come in, didn't it? Yes, of course. He burst in immediately without knocking. The inspector hurled himself at the stocky fellow and just managed to slip past him to make his escape. The outstanding guard does it again. Luckily, there aren't many situations I can't get out of using a quick Ibonsei throw.
Hold it!
The crown snapped off and the glass covering the face of the watch was cracked. Preferable to the man's head being pulled off or his spine cracking, wouldn't you say? But wait. Jigaku is claiming that the watch broke when he shoulder-throwed the guy. Now, where about his person did Gregson store his watch? Because as a pocket watch, I would imagine it would be like a chest pocket or something. And like, he's landing on his back if you're throwing him over your shoulder. Although I'm pretty sure that this game doesn't expect people to know that, so that's not relevant. But still. I mean, I guess when he hit the floor it could have, like, flown out of his pocket and landed on the floor. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be relevant where Inspector Gregson stores his pocket watch, so it's just a thought I'm having. Yeah, I'm not sure I personally would have stored a pocket watch in my back pocket, but I guess that's me and that's not Gregson, and I don't know where I'm going with this. Not that the man was spared for long, a bullet to the chest soon sorted that. But the point is, the broken pocket watch doesn't prove that a murder took place. Absolutely not! All the watch proves is the power of my jujitsu throw! Whatever you say, it doesn't ring quite true that no shot was fired in that cabin. Because there was an obvious bullet hole in the wall. What are you talking about? The one you moved the rules over and fucked up. That's what the star of your lowbrow detective stories told you, is it? Well, I don't care for such fiction. Also, we shouldn't be bringing that up. We don't have evidence about that. Haven't you worked it out yet, you little stripling? No murder took place in my cabin.
Hold it!
But there's no evidence that proves the victim ever returned to London alive. Just take a moment to think that idea of yours through now, stripling. What? If the inspector was killed on the steamship in France, how on earth could he have gotten back to Britain? On the steamship! You know, the way you got to Britain! When people die, their bodies remain at that same spot. It's a devil of a thing. Yes, but if no one knew he was dead on the steamship, they wouldn't have had to remove his body to France. Because you hid it in the freezer. Well, then obviously the culprit must have moved the body. How exactly? Hey Jigoku, dude, we found you inside your travelling case. You are larger than Inspector Gregson. You could easily have put him in there. Carrying a corpse off a ship in your arms would raise a few eyebrows at least, don't you think? Well, yes, that's true, but all passenger luggage is inspected when it is unloaded from arriving vessels. Fine, Strongheart. You could have gone back and picked it up again. And I would like to think the border police would query the corpse of an English gentleman as hand luggage. If the murder had taken place aboard the ship, you would have imagined the body would have been disposed of at sea. Well, no, because it was all part of a conspiracy to put Van Zieks behind bars. There would be no sense in risking being caught by attempting to transport the body back to Britain. Let's kill that idea then. But perhaps not. Miss Susato? We've heard that the first-class passengers were under constant scrutiny from the crewmen posted to guard them. Which would mean that the culprit had no opportunity to dispose of the body in the sea. but apparently all the opportunity to dispose of it in cold storage. Yes, that's true. So transporting the body to Britain may have been the only viable alternative. Dear me, you really are new to this, aren't you? I thought I'd been perfectly clear, but it seems I'm going to have to explain it in words you can understand. I think I ought to alter my testimony, with your consent, of course, my lord. I have no objection. State your amended testimony now. There's no possible way I could have transported the victim's corpse back to Britain.
Hold it!
That's an idea. Think about it, stripling. All passengers and crew disembarked at the same time and passed through the same checks at the border. The symposium guests were then driven straight to the hotel in carriages organised by the ministry. And we met you as soon as you arrived at the hotel. So you did. Well then, remind me, did I have a corpse over my shoulder at the time? What? No! So we're in agreement then. I couldn't possibly have brought the inspector's body back to Britain. Your bag! It's huge! Unless, of course, they developed a clever device these days to instantly move things from A to B. Funny you should say that. Yeah, I was amused by that at the same time, because we literally just had a case about that, didn't we? Professor Harebrain's invention didn't actually work, if you remember, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, of course. The defense has become unusually quiet, I notice. Yes, because there's really nothing more to say. So that's his story. Well, I suppose if you think about it, whenever you drop a teacup in the office and it breaks, we don't say, Mr. Naruhodo must have been murdered there, do we? Is that a veiled threat about what might happen to me if I break another one? And the fact is that Inspector Gregson's body was found in the little room on Fresno Street. If he really was killed in Judge Shigaku's cabin, the body would have to have been moved somehow, obviously. Transporting a dead body over a country border, that would be impossible for the majority of people. So there must have been some special circumstances that made it possible for the culprit then. That could be a vital realization, I think, Mr. Naruhodo. Okay, I think the thing I'm going to have to press to is his amended... not press, present. It must be this amended one. There's no possible way I could have transported the victim's corpse back to Britain. Because there must be a way. The letter of introduction, I don't think is going to help us this time. Even if it does say, hey, you came to Britain aboard that same steamship. Inspector's identification, no. The commemorative photograph? The commemorative photograph has his luggage in it! It's got his luggage in it! So maybe I can throw this and point out, oi, isn't your luggage awfully big, sir? Yeah, let's do that. I've got 5 lives.
Objection!
There's no possible way you could have moved Inspector Gregson's body, you say? I would say the opposite is true. And what's that supposed to mean? Far from being impossible for you to do, the transporting of Inspector Gregson's body back to Britain is something only you could do. What are you talking about, Ryunosuke? As well as being a judge, Mr. Jigoku is also Japan's Minister of Foreign Affairs, which means he has diplomatic immunity and they probably don't check his bags. Which means he's exempt from having his luggage searched when he enters the country. We learnt that when we first met you upon your arrival in London. Well, all those passport checks and luggage searches at the border took rather a lot of time. I must say I'm very envious of your ministerial status. You didn't have to go through any of that, did you? Oh yeah, that was sad. That was so long ago though, I'd forgotten it. I knew you were jealous! Ha 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 ha! I presume you recall this, Judge Shigaku? It's a photograph we took in the foyer of the hotel to mark the occasion. As the court will note, you have with you your large travel trunk. Large enough, in fact, to have a corpse inside. Mr. Naruhodo, surely you're not suggesting that we took a commemorative photograph for the corpse? Yes. I'm afraid I am, yes. 3 days ago, when we were chatting innocently with the new arrivals from Japan in the hotel, the body of Inspector Gregson was just meters away from us, inside Judge Shigaku's trunk. Order! Order in court! Yeah, there are more people in that picture than we assumed at first, that's true. I'm skeptical, counsel, that a grown man's body could fit inside even the largest travel trunk. Well! It could. Because I happen to know that the witness himself, a man of considerable size, fits inside his trunk. And verifying that would be extremely simple, wouldn't it, Judge Shigaku? But inside his trunk, how horrifying! Yeah, it does depend on how tall and small they are. But we found Jigoku inside his own trunk when he was trying to escape being brought back to Britain. So, Gregson's definitely smaller than Judge Shigaku, because Judge Shigaku is a mountain of a man. And after we'd spoken with you at the Great Waterloo Hotel, you had the opportunity to visit the apparent scene on Fresno Street, taking your trunk with you in a cab to deposit the inspector's body. Because I believe we have witnesses that say they saw a man in a red wig with a trunk, right? I don't have to listen to this nonsense. Yeah, you do. Dr. Gori, the coroner who examined the body, has confirmed the possibility. She's acknowledged that there are signs that steps may have been taken to disguise the true time of death. The onset of the body's decomposition could have been delayed by storing it in a refrigerator. Counsel, as I remember explaining yesterday, refrigerators of the requisite size are far and few between. Sorry, few and far between. Yes, I'm sure they are. But one place they're certainly found is on large ocean liners. Such ships are equipped with electrically refrigerated cold rooms to keep food fresh on their long sea voyages. And the SS Grouse is no exception. Professor Mikotoba told me about it only yesterday. Well, Judge Shigaku? However much you prolong this debate, you can't eliminate the truth. All the evidence points to you being the killer. Well, this is all very heartening. I can see it was a wise move, letting Asogi and you embark on this study tour. What are you talking about now? Logical reasoning, of course. All court proceedings will be built on logical reasoning in the new century. And I can see that you've both laid firm foundations for that already. Shigoku, please stop diverting attention from the issue at hand. The defense has made an accusation against you. How do you respond? Respond? There's really no need for me to respond, is there? Why ever not? Because before you can even begin to answer the question of when the victim was killed, you must first establish one key fact. Where was the victim killed? It's quite logical. Yeah, in your cabin, where we've got all the evidence. The actual scene of the crime. The prosecution's stance is unaltered. The killing took place on Fresno Street when the gunshot was heard. As the accused, Barak Vonzi shot the victim at point-blank range. Since no tangible evidence exists to disprove the prosecution's claim at this time, the defense's deductions amount to little more than an elaborate fairy tale. I'm afraid that's how the logical reasoning the British are known for really works, young stripling. The victim was shot in that little room on Fresno Street and died instantly? I'm afraid it's the prosecution's claim that's the only fairy tale here. How can you say that? Quite simply. Because that claim directly contradicts a certain piece of evidence in our possession. Very tantalizing, counsel. I think you had better explain yourself to the court, don't you? The prosecution claims that Inspector Gregson died instantly when he was shot at the scene on Fresno Street. But this evidence clearly contradicts that claim. Okay, something about Fresno Street. The hairpiece would be relevant. The revolver? Probably not. The autopsy report. Does say instant death. So it's not that. The floor plan probably isn't going to help us. Oh yeah! That's an awful lot of blood to leak out of him if they found him instantly, isn't it? I mean, I don't really know how that works exactly. But that is an awful lot of blood. For someone who was shot through the chest. And died instantly. And then was almost immediately found. Let's go for that.
Take that!
A photograph of the victim in the very location you claim he wasn't killed. Yes, but the point is the posture of the body itself. Oh, that wasn't the point I was trying to make. Oh, we already established, I think, that the blood at Fresno Street was like chicken blood or something. I seem to remember. The posture. Oh yeah. He's not going to be all curled up if he was shot in the chest and immediately died, is he? He's going to be curled up if he was in pain for a while and like curled up on his own wounds. Or if he was arranged. Because he would have to have been curled up to fit inside the trunk. And then he probably went into rigor mortis like that, and so they just had to shove him in the corner like that. If Inspector Gregson had been shot there in that room, it's out of the question that his body would have been curled up in a ball like that. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but your logic is flawed. He could easily have adopted the fetal position due to the pain of the shot, which subsequently proved fatal. Aside from the fact that we were told he was killed instantly, sir.
Objection!
I'm sorry to disappoint you, Judge Shigaku, but it's your logic that's flawed. What? According to this autopsy report, the victim died instantly. He would have felt no pain, much less have been able to draw himself into that position. Ah! I got you on the ropes now, ain't I? Which begs the question of why the victim's body is curled up in that way. Though the answer should be abundantly clear by now. You're suggesting... The inspector's body took on that posture ahead of its arrival on Fresno Street, before it was coldly turned out on the floor from the inside of a large travel trunk. No, you're quite right. The shape of the body, it looks exactly as if it'd been kept in a confined space. Judge Shigaku, present your trunk for examination. I believe it's very possible that it will contain traces of the victim's blood. Yeah! Present my trunk, I refuse. What? On what grounds? On the grounds of his diplomatic immunity, probably. I'm the Minister of Foreign Affairs from the Empire of Japan. I shouldn't have to put up with this treatment just because of some stripling's baseless accusations. Ah, but also if you have nothing to hide, then you should have no objections to this. In other words, Judge Shigaku, there is blood in your trunk. I decline to answer that. As the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I have privileges that... At this moment, you're not a government minister. You're a witness in trial in Britain's highest court. I don't care who you are, or what your status outside this courtroom might be. You will not withhold information. Nothing is more important than the truth. Yeah. Order, order in court! Well, Mr. Jigoku, what's it to be? You can't be serious, you did it? Have you no shame at all, Kazuma Asogi? What? Very well, I admit it. I did bring the inspector's body into the country. Inside my trunk, exactly as postulated by the defense. What? You... Dear God, outrageous! So it was you! You admit to Inspector Gregson's No, I admit to nothing more than what I've said. He admits to transporting a dead body, but he does not admit to causing the dead body. Of killing the man, I certainly have no recollection. What on earth is that cryptic statement supposed to mean? I merely disposed of the inspector's body, which was left in my cabin, in order to avoid unwanted attention. As the judicial assistant over there pointed out, I had no chance but to throw it into the ocean. So I decided my only option was to bring it into Britain with me and dispose of it somewhere else. You can't still deny it. If you didn't do it, then who on earth did kill the man? As you know, there was one other person in my cabin that night. He had the opportunity. Now he's trying to pin it back on Kazuma. And moreover, he'd already accepted a mission to take the inspector's life. Oh. That's right, who else could it have been? It was you, Kazuma Asogi. You... but Judge Chigaku, weren't you claiming that you met with Inspector Gregson and he pulled a gun on you? Are you admitting that you lied about all of that? So I think that finds you in contempt of court. You... I never thought you'd stoop to this, Seishiro Jigoku. You've taken the words straight out of my mouth, Prosecutor Kazuma Asogi. You thought by leaving the body in my cabin you could pin the crime on me, did you? Well, the prosecution counsel has already admitted to visiting the witness's cabin on the night in question. Yes, on an assassination mission, no less. You wouldn't. So, what did you make of that, young stripling? I don't trust you. As far as I could throw you, Jigoku, which isn't too far, even though I could definitely hip throw you. But you wouldn't go very far. You've heard my testimony now, and that's all I have to say on the matter. I'll admit to nothing more. I think you'll admit to a lot more than that eventually. I don't believe this. Counsel for the defense. What is your position now? The court awaits your response to the witness's assertion. The assertion that on the night in question, the victim's assailant was in fact Mr. Kazuma Asogi. This isn't the dead end it seems to be. The answer's right in front of me. It comes down to Jigoku or Kazuma. Both of them had the opportunity to kill Gregson, but only one of them did it. And I'm just a step away from proving who. Very well, the defense is ready to respond to the assertion put forward by Judge Jigoku. The idea that the victim's murder could have been committed by Prosecutor Asogi is... impossible! Because the gunshot could only have been fired during that evacuation drill, and that evacuation drill took place after the ship left Dunkirk and Kazuma left at Dunkirk. And there is evidence that we could obtain proving that. Not that we have it at the moment, but we could get the information from the B&B in Dunkirk. Impossible. Judge Jigoku, let me remind you of something you said only a few minutes ago. You claimed that logical reasoning is the future of the judicial process. It is, no question. Well, logical reasoning can prove something here. Namely, that it would have been impossible for Prosecutor Asogi to commit the crime. What? The court will only accept an argument that is supported by compelling evidence. So present what you have, counsel. What proof is there that allegedly demonstrates the impossibility of Prosecutor Asogi's involvement? The evacuation drill itinerary.
Take that!
This itinerary for crew members of the SS Grouse, my lord. This is conclusive proof. An itinerary? How does that prove anything? Judge Shigoku, the moment you acknowledged that you found the victim's body in your cabin, this itinerary suddenly became much more significant. What? Why? On the night in question, as always, a crewman's sentry was on guard outside your cabin door. As long as he was there, nobody could have fired a shot inside the cabin. Absolutely, because it's inconceivable that the guard wouldn't have heard it and come to investigate. So that tells us that the crime must have taken place when the guard was elsewhere. And that narrows it down to the 20 minutes just after 10 o'clock, as indicated on the itinerary. Yes, I see no flaw in your reasoning so far. But the crucial point is this. When the evacuation drill took place, the steamship had already put to sea from the port of Dunkirk. Yeah. Now, clearly the murder could only have been committed by somebody who was aboard the vessel at the time. The prosecutor Asogi stated in yesterday's proceedings, "I didn't come to Great Britain to take anyone's life. So I left Gregson and disembarked the ship. I spent that night at a boarding house in the town and returned to England the following morning." Which I'm sure the court will agree is conclusive proof that Kazuma Asogi couldn't possibly have carried out the killing. Yeah! No, absolutely not. I don't accept that at all. What do you mean? The boy's just saying that to exonerate himself. We can't trust that he really disembarked the vessel. Obviously, after he left my cabin, he hid himself somewhere nearby on the ship. Just waiting for his chance to come back and finish this. No, that's out of the question. Isn't it, Kazuma? As the defense rightly recalls, I disembarked the vessel and spent the night in a boarding house in Dunkirk. And as I said yesterday, I signed my name in the accommodations register book. All extremely easy to verify, and undeniable proof. Yeah, no, There's no escape this time. You can forget that you're a judge or a government minister. It's time you gave the court an honest answer as a common man. You killed Inspector Tobias Gregson and transported his corpse back to Britain. Then you dumped the body in the room on Fresno Street and made it look as if the murder happened there. That's what really happened, isn't it, Seishiro Jigoku? It was that damned trial 10 years ago, that's where this all began. Looking back now, my fate was decided that day. I was doomed already. Ah! Isn't that the second witness stand you've broken, Judge Shigoku? It's over! My life is over! A British assassin to eliminate a professor in Japan. A Japanese assassin to eliminate a detective in Britain. Both assassins will use diplomatic immunity to evade conviction and return safely to their homelands. The assassin exchange request arrived from Britain about 1 year ago. Though it was hardly a request, it was a demand. And for that, you decided to recruit Mr. Asogi. But things didn't go according to plan. Your chosen assassin never made it to Britain. And you found yourself unable to dispatch a replacement. Because I was already on my way to Britain at that time in Kazuma's place. And that left me with only one option for carrying out my obligation. To eliminate the mark myself, personally. Of course, there was but a single opportunity for me to do that. The International Forensic Science Symposium, I presume. That's right. I decided it would be safest to carry out the plan before my arrival in Britain. So I enlisted the help of my British counterpart, and made arrangements for a pretext that would take the inspector to Dunkirk. To lure the man in, he was given a sham mission by the Reaper. What? The Reaper? But there's only one person who could have done that. The mastermind of the entire operation. The Reaper himself. So, that means that the assassin exchange was... It was all planned by the Reaper? I'm not at liberty to say anything about my British counterpart. Anyway, the inspector accepted the Reaper's mission and dutifully infiltrated my cabin on the steamship. But it was all a trap designed to lead him to France and his own death. Oh, how awful! It was past 9 o'clock when I returned to my cabin from the dining hall that evening. I didn't give him time to attack me. I choked him until he lost consciousness. Oh. But there was a guard just outside the door, so I left it at that for the time being. Even the slightest noise might have aroused suspicion, so I bided my time, waiting. For the 20 minutes after 10 o'clock. I had intended to finish him by strangulation, but moments before I had the chance, he suddenly came around and went for me in a reckless move. I'd received the British-issue gun 16 years earlier, being a member of the judiciary as a visiting student. I think my connection is fine. I haven't had it do a buffering thing at my end. And OBS doesn't say there's any dropped frames. Stream health is absolutely fine, apparently. So I'm guessing it's your end. So there we go. He got the gun 16 years ago because he was a member of the judiciary then. I never imagined I'd have to use it for something like that. So the revolver belongs to you, does it? And the victim was killed inside your cabin on the SS Grouse. Which begs the question of why you arranged for his body to be discovered in the room on Fresno Street. The young judicial assistant over there has already answered that question. There was no way I could take the body up on deck to throw it over the side. That's precisely where all the crewmen were gathered for the evacuation drill. So before the first-class cabin sentries returned, I took the corpse to the refrigeration room. And then on arriving in Dover, you concealed the body in your trunk in order to smuggle it past the border police. I knew I needed to take steps if the police were to be convinced when the body was found in London. In that case, you must have known. You must have had intimate details of Inspector Gregson's intended schedule. Yes, my British counterpart sent me everything I needed to know. The inspector was due at Fresno Street at 5 o'clock that afternoon, in order to meet a man by the name of Hugh Boone, from whom he would take back his police identification. Ah! I decided that man would be the perfect person to set up as the culprit. Oh, so he wasn't even trying to set up Fancy, he was trying to set up Hugh Boone. So I took a hackney carriage over there with the body still in my trunk. That must have been just after we took this photograph with you at the hotel then. Yes, I wasn't expecting a welcoming committee. I was more than a little nervous. On Fresno Street, I spotted a young girl selling little firecrackers. Miss Venus, of course. I conceived of the candle trick then and there. Sorry, there and then. So I donned a simple disguise and approached the girl to buy enough firecrackers to replicate a gunshot. What sort of disguise? For some reason, the inspector had a bright red hairpiece in his own travelling case. So I put that on, although I suspect I drew more attention to myself than I would have otherwise. And the hairpiece we found at the scene. The inspector had it ready for the Red-Headed League investigation. I only arrived at the room at around 5:15. So I quickly placed the body on the floor, moved the notice board, and set up my little candle trick. I arranged it so the firecrackers would go off with a bang around 15 minutes later. So that Mr. Boone, who was due to arrive at 5, would walk straight into a trap. Except, at the last moment, I made a careless blunder. What was that? I imagine it was the bag of fish and chips. Ah! I didn't notice it had fallen out of his overcoat pocket when I moved the body to the refrigeration room. I put it back in his pocket the following morning, but... And that's why the fish and chips decomposed and he didn't. Well, it seems the warmth of the heated cabin had accelerated the decay of the fish. Anyway, that's everything. All the sordid details of what I did. I've heard enough. We've arrived at the truth about the murder of one of the country's most capable and respected police inspectors. The witness will be tried in the coming days. For a crime of such a vile nature, you can expect the most severe penalty. An exchange of assassins. What a foolhardy idea. Mr. Jigoku, one last detail. Who was your counterpart in Britain? Who was the mastermind behind the assassin exchange? Nothing you say now can make matters any worse for you. Just tell us. Yeah, take someone down with you. Enough! I've already told you that I cannot say. Even though as things stand, you may very well never set foot in your homeland again. Yeah, you're done for, Jigoku. Take someone with you. What are you waiting for? Can we get this over with now? It's finished, all of it. If it's finished, just tell us. I'm finished. Then, in the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I now pronounce the findings of this court. This man before us has admitted to the willful murder of Tobias Gregson. Seishiro Jigoku, it is the opinion of this court that you should be found guilty. I thought he was going to be tried later. And may I remind all of those present of the strict confidentiality demanded by this closed court. Moments ago, Mr. Jigoku signed a written confession, admitting to the murder of Inspector Gregson and the subsequent conveyance of the body. In short, the defendant's innocence has therefore been established beyond doubt. Oh, wonderful! Well done, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, thank you? Is something wrong? I'm just a little troubled by his silence. The true identity of the Reaper of the Bailey and this extraordinary assassin exchange. We do remain in the dark about those mysteries, however. Insofar as the indictment brought against the defendants in this trial, we have reached a conclusion. I have every intention of pursuing both mysteries as a prosecutor. As you wish. Now for the formal adjudication. I hereby declare the defendant, Barak van Zieks.
Objection!
Chasm? The prosecution calls for adjudication to be deferred. Counsel? The accused's innocence hasn't been fully established at all, and therefore it would be wrong to deliver a verdict at this time. That is the prosecution's unwavering position. What? But Judge Shigoku has already confessed. Yeah, Kazuma's going to say that he confessed that it was an assassination. So in theory, we can put the death on the shoulders of the person who arranged it. Which we've already established is probably the Reaper. Nevertheless, Barak van Zieks has committed crimes for which he must be punished. Well, it would appear you have information that the court needs to hear, Prosecutor Asogi. Certainly, the murder of Inspector Gregson was actually carried out by Seishiro Jigoku. But it's clear from the witness's testimony that he was coerced into complying with the plot. Into this sick, merciless assassin exchange. That may be true, but... So what I want to know is who coerced Jigoku? Who was pulling the strings? The victim went to France having been ordered on a mission for the Reaper, only to be murdered. In other words, the mastermind behind the assassin exchange is someone in a position to give such an order. As we've already established, the Reaper himself. Well, certainly that would appear to follow. The prosecution hereby formally accuses the man in the dock, Barak van Zieks, of being the Reaper of the Bailey, and furthermore, I'm going to prove his guilt beyond all reasonable doubt. What? Order, order, order! The Reaper of the Bailey is a long-standing mystery, Council. Are you suggesting that you have some new information with which to build a case? Scotland Yard has already investigated Lord Van Zieks very thoroughly in that regard. And they found no evidence whatsoever to substantiate the claim that he is the Reaper. Perhaps, but circumstances have now changed. What do you mean? It's already been established that the assassin exchange was negotiated with Jugoku by the Reaper himself. Which means we now have a new line of questioning by which to identify definitively the man's identity. I mean, we know this is the finale. We were told this was the final chapter. I guess it just means that this case is going to go on longer. That is the prosecution's intention here. I must say I'm surprised by quite how tenacious you appear to want to by quite how tenaciously you appear to want to besmirch my name. I mean, I never said it was going to be the final stream. Because, you know, having used the guide, I'm aware how many parts this is in. This is part 3 of 4 as of this. You are guilty of an unforgivable crime, Lord Van Zieks. And I will bring you to justice for it, whatever it takes. That explains Kazuma's silence before. I mean, obviously also it wouldn't end without us finding out who the Reaper of the Bailey is, right? I'll stop at nothing to finish what Lord Van Zieks unwittingly started 10 years ago. Very well. Well, it's extremely irregular. I will on this occasion grant the prosecution further opportunity for witness testimony. The defendant will disclose any and all involvement he has had with the Reaper and the Assassin exchange. I thank you, my lord, for guiding the court so wisely. I hereby declare this court to be in session for a supplementary hearing. Hey, someone replaced that witness stand pretty fast. Pray turn a blind eye to the discourtesy as I verify that this vile and unremitting accusation hasn't soured the contents of my hallowed chalice. Lord Van Zieks? I first had to suffer the pseudonym of the Reaper 10 years ago now. And ever since that time I've endured the weight of implied guilt that's gone with it. Goodbye, hallowed chalice. So I welcome the chance to testify now and crush these allegations once and for all. Good. Then let justice decide, Lord Van Zieks. The prosecution seeks to begin building its case by calling the accused to the stand as the primary witness, in order that he may answer the accusation brought by the prosecution that he is the Reaper of the Bailey. And what says the defense? Putting the defendant in the witness stand can be extremely dangerous. And Kazuma-sama is so emotional at the moment, he's not thinking logically. You're right that he's not himself. But I knew it would be like this. and I came here today determined to face him through whatever might arise. As a lawyer, and as his friend. And that's what we must do. The defense has no objection, my lord. Very well. Defendant, you will take the witness stand and give formal testimony on the subject of your involvement with the Reaper and the Assassin Exchange. As you wish, my lord. The Reaper and the Assassin Exchange. I've never taken the life of another, nor have I instructed another to kill. I've been investigating the truth behind the Reaper for years, and I was aware of Gregson's involvement. That's the reason why I went to Fresno Street that day and how I came to discover the body. The point is, no common thread exists between myself, Gregson, and Dr. Wilson. Clearly, therefore, there's no reason to suspect me of being behind the Assassin Exchange. Oh man, unfortunately there is a connection between you. I am so very sorry. I am so very sorry, Bunzeeks, but there is a connection. So you deny all accusations by the prosecution? Both that you are the Reaper of the Bailey and that you masterminded the Assassin Exchange. I acknowledge that the public at large believe me to be the Reaper. However, that's a fallacy, which I alone am in a position to forswear. Naturally, the prosecution believes the testimony just given by the accused to be untrue. Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Yes? Let me ask you, why are you here? What really brings you to this courtroom? The truth? A desire to uncover the truth. Even if the truth proves your client to be guilty? From all my experiences in this courtroom, I've come to realize something. The truth can't be hidden. Sooner or later, it will come out. So it's always my intention to work with my clients in pursuit of the truth. I want you to remember what you just said. Enough dilatory chatter! Counsel for the defense, proceed to cross-examine the witness. Yes, my lord. I know exactly what you're thinking, Kazuma. I know you're just waiting to point it out. The contradiction you're convinced lies somewhere within this man's testimony. Yeah, I know where it is. Let's press all the things, though.
Hold it!
So you're not what the general public refer to as the infamous Reaper of the Bailey? Exactly. Don't imagine for a moment that the court will be satisfied with a one-word answer on this. I realise that. If you're intending to comment on every sentence, this could take a while, Kazuma. Didn't you find it disturbing, though? That one by one, defendants who'd been acquitted after your unsuccessful prosecution were killed? Let me answer that question by posing another. If one by one defendants who'd been acquitted after your successful defense were killed, would you find that disturbing? Yes? Disturbing? I couldn't possibly say how that would make me feel with a one-word answer like that. Exactly. Well, that told me. But even though I'm not the Reaper, that doesn't mean I ignored all the hearsay.
Hold it!
You say for years. How long exactly? Since the very first time the Reaper's influence was felt in this courtroom. 10 years ago now. And your investigations led you somehow to Inspector Gregson, you're saying? I didn't want to believe it. He was a personal acquaintance. We'd worked on cases together in the past. A friend, even? It felt like a betrayal, but I demanded permission to search his office at the Yard without his knowledge. Which is when you found his secret notebook, is it? It was when I first learned of the location he'd noted only as Grouse, and the appointment at 5 PM on the 31st. Though I didn't know the significance of those details at the time. So now we're at the nub of the matter. As it turns out, the significance for me personally was very unfortunate.
Hold it!
But why did you go to that specific location? I thought that if it was the Reaper's headquarters, then by turning up there at 5 o'clock I would catch whoever was involved red-handed. Sadly, all that was awaiting me was the inspector's corpse. Yes, even though it wasn't designed for you, you walked straight into the trap set by Jigoku. Exactly. Jigoku had intended to implicate Hugh Boone. But unhappily for me, I arrived at the scene first. Ha! A ridiculously careless blunder. Moved on to just throwing insults around, I see then, Kazuma. Think what you will, it doesn't change the truth. The point is, no common thread exists between. Yeah, wait. But this is the one I need to present something to, but we're going to do the pressing anyway. There is a link between you and Gregson, though. Of course, we were close acquaintances. We'd worked on numerous cases together. I considered the man to be a mentor of sorts. He taught me a number of important lessons. He did? Such as what? Where to buy good fish and chips, and such like. Aww. Well, that was convincing. Dr. Wilson was a coroner, of course, but that was some time in the past. And in any case, I understand it was several years ago now that he was invited to work at a Japanese university. That's right, he was a visiting professor at the Imperial Yume University in Tokyo. It should be unambiguously clear, then, that no link exists between myself and him. In other words, I had no motive for sending some assassin across the oceans to kill the man. It sounds plausible enough, and I want to believe it. Something about this doesn't quite sit right with me. Time to press his last statement, and then we'll get to present. Certainly as it stands, there's no evidence to suggest that you concocted the scheme.
Objection!
But as it stands, we have only the accused's insistence of his innocence. Sorry? Perhaps there is some reason that would explain why he masterminded the assassin exchange. And if a reason could be established later in these proceedings, then the accused's claim in this testimony that he wasn't involved would amount to perjury. Well, yes, that's true, but clearly Kazuma-sama intends to identify a reason and use it to make his case. So if we don't identify something first, he'll gain the advantage. This could be dangerous. convincing testimony by Lord Van Zieks. Certainly, with no apparent connection between the three men, there's no way to establish a motive. The testimony seems unassailable as far as I can see. Oh dear me, what a bleak expression! I agree, there doesn't appear to be any particular link between them, at first glance. But with the inclusion of one other person? I must be overthinking it, surely. Another person, Mr. Naruhodo? I need to think back over all the information we've gleaned so far. Alright, and I'll review my notes about the case and all of the evidence in the court record. Could it be that Lord Van Zieks has something to hide after all? Okay. So, the no common thread thing. There is a common thread. The only thing we have from Wilson is this. Clint Van Zieks' autopsy report. Which says, credit to Inspector Gregson for petitioning so doggedly for the autopsy procedure. So this.
Objection!
What is this? An autopsy report? Wait, this is 10 years old from the autopsy of Lord Clint Van Zieks. What? My brother's autopsy report? Van Zieks is like, what are you doing with that? I'm pleased to see the defense doesn't intend to run from the undeniable truth. Order in court! What reason do you have for presenting a 10-year-old autopsy report here, counsel? Yeah, we do keep getting bots like that, don't we? I don't think it's the same, well, it probably is the same bot with different accounts, isn't it? This, the autopsy report of the professor's final victim, is an indelible link between Inspector Gregson, Dr. Wilson, and the defendant. Not that accursed name again, the Professor. I've personally researched all of the court records relating to that case. I know that at the time, autopsy was considered sacrilege to the victims' souls. And for a member of the aristocracy like Lord Clint Van Zieks, it was unthinkable. But someone implored the powers that be to allow the autopsy to go ahead. Inspector Gregson. He declared that he was certain he would obtain conclusive proof from the procedure. And it was Dr. Wilson who conducted the autopsy. His signature is clearly visible on the document. As promised by Gregson, the autopsy did indeed produce evidence. Evidence that conclusively proved Genshin Asogi was guilty of the murders. In my brother's dying moments, he mustered all his remaining strength to leave that vital clue behind. Indeed, that was the key to indicting the Professor for his crimes, and the conclusive evidence that convicted him. It enabled Lord Van Zieks here to avenge his brother's senseless death with a marvellous victory in court. A marvellous victory, was it? I wonder if that's really true. What? Could the same be said if it turned out that the key piece of evidence in question was in fact fabricated? If the inspector, the coroner, and the prosecutor all colluded together to cast an innocent Japanese man as a mass murderer and send him to his death. That's outrageous! And now, 10 years later, for some reason the secret has been threatened and needs protecting. Which is why the inspector and the coroner had to be silenced, is it? That would be a thing, wouldn't it? By someone in power in Japan and in Britain, using the two killers recruited for the assassin exchange. Order! Order at once! 10 years ago, my father was convicted in this very courtroom as a mass murderer, to be sentenced to death. But it was all a sham, and I swore to myself that I'd prove it. Which is why I had to come to Britain, whatever the cost. You'll have to forgive me if I feel compelled to toast this vengeful Nipponese's tenacity of purpose here. However, he who fails to quash his emotions in the courtroom has failed as a lawyer. So you're saying that you don't break your glasses and drink in the courtroom because you get emotional? Come on, Kazuma, you know this won't wash. You're claiming your father was misrepresented in a trial that took place a whole decade ago. You must see that without evidence as nothing more than a wild accusation. As it happens, I have evidence. What? As the court has heard, I crossed the channel to France with Gregson on the 31st. I went with him on the pretext of being the assassin recruited to kill Seishiro Jigoku. But my true intentions were to make the inspector tell me the truth. What truth? The truth about the evidence, and he acknowledged what I'd already deduced. There's a closely guarded secret about what went on in that autopsy 10 years ago. What? A secret? I know nothing of any secret. While we waited for my supposed mark in Jigoku's cabin, I drew my clan's illustrious sword Karama before the inspector's eyes. He very quickly understood what my true motive was. Right, I see. You're that Asogi's young lad, are you? And what? You're gonna cut me down with that thing, is it? Is that it? That will very much depend on the answers you give to my questions. I want to know what really happened 10 years ago. The truth, that's all. Before we get into it, let me make one thing clear. I still believe your father was the professor. There's no doubt in my mind. But unfortunately back then, we didn't have the evidence we needed to make the crime stick. So, you admit it then? The evidence used in my father's trial was fabricated? It was for the good of the country. Anyway, I was just following orders. Orders? What exactly did you do? Speak! I'm not saying another word. Even if your life depends on it? That's right, even then. And that's when Karama's point got lodged in the case, I guess. So that's when the tip of the sword broke. Oh, Kazuma-sama! If the results of Clint Van Zeek's autopsy were fabricated, then the investigating officer Gregson and the lead coroner Wilson must have known about it. And they can only have been ordered to pervert the course of justice in that way by one man. The man leading the case for the prosecution, Barak Von Zeeks. Except that Van Zeeks wasn't supposed to be the prosecutor initially, was he? We've been told that. In other words, the defendant did have cause to organise the exchange of assassins. Exactly. And as was established earlier, it has to have been the Reaper himself who liaised with Jigoku in Japan to arrange the exchange. So it follows that the Reaper's true identity can only be that of the man who stands accused in this courtroom today, Barak van Zieks. Yeah, but he begged and pleaded, a certain someone, to get on that case, didn't he?
Objection!
Kazuma Asogi. What? What you've just told the court, are you absolutely certain of your facts? Did Gregson really fabricate evidence for that trial 10 years ago? I heard it with my own ears, his shameful admission. In that case, I know the name of the Reaper. What? What? So do I. Lord Van Zieks. I gave no such orders. I know that for certain. Which narrows down the remaining possibilities to one. If Lord Van Zieks isn't the one behind all this, then yes, there is only one other person who could have done something like that. Hey chat, do you remember who was supposed to be the prosecutor in the Professor case? 'Cause I do! I believe I know who it is too. You... I just had the feeling this name was going to come up. The true identity of the infamous Reaper of the Bailey is Miles Strongheart.
Take that!
The only person who could have arranged the assassin exchange and manipulated the autopsy reports is the Lord Chief Justice himself, Lord Miles Strongheart. What? Lord Strongheart? Yes, it's true that 10 years ago the defendant handled the prosecution of the Professor in court. But he only took over the case after his brother Lord Clint Van Zieks had been killed. I can only assume that this is the most inappropriate joke in British judicial history. No, it's not a joke. Well, Lord Van Zieks, 10 years ago, I was very new to my profession. But I had a burning desire to avenge my brother's death, so I pleaded for control of the case. The investigation to that point, the supplication of the Lords to allow my brother's corpse to be examined. All the evidence I was given, the autopsy reports, it all came from you. I've spent my life since then believing I was in your debt for the way you stood aside and let me handle the trial. But I see now, I was very much mistaken. Strongheart set this up 10 years ago. It was a hugely influential force that caused the Inspector and the Coroner to break the law 10 years ago. And that same force was still felt a decade later on in the other side of the world by Seishiro Jigoku. Lord Strongheart, everything falls into place when we recognise that you are the Reaper of the Bailey. The court awaits your response, my lord. This may very well go down in British judicial history, but I assure you, it is no joke. consider this a formal accusal by the defense. It doesn't warrant a response. A formal accusal? Don't be absurd. The defense's claims are utter nonsense, a wild fantasy at best. You're not going to defend yourself? You claim there was some wrongdoing with Lord Clint Van Zieks' autopsy. That's utterly untrue.
Objection!
But I heard it from Gregson's own lips. He admitted to it. And where is your evidence? What? Gregson's dead now, unless you were thinking of summoning a ghost to the stand. Can we? You mean to say... I forget how the system works in your little backwater country, but in the courts of the British Empire, without evidence, there is no case. I have no intention of entertaining some wild fantasy that can't possibly be substantiated by anyone or anything. Ah! Now, Lord Strongheart, that's where you're wrong. There is someone who can substantiate the claim that the autopsy report was faked. And we know that. We know that because it was already proved to us that the autopsy report wasn't actually written by the coroner. You know, how we found out that Wilson wasn't Sholmes's partner, and therefore not Iris's father. Because Wilson didn't write that report. Professor Mikotoba did. And Professor Mikotoba is very much alive. Yeah. Order in court! Following Inspector Gregson's murder, and in the light of Dr. Wilson's death as well, there is really no one left who could testify about the events of 10 years ago, is there? So that was the real purpose of the assassin exchange. Because Strongheart knew that Van Zieks was getting close to the truth. This court has no business raking over the coals of a case that was concluded a decade ago. The accusal brought by the prosecution and the defense is categorically denied. I take it there are no objections. Kazuma. He's more or less waited his whole life for this moment. Is there really nothing else we can do now? Is there no other avenue we can go down in pursuit of the truth of what happened all those years ago? If only there was someone who could testify about Clint Van Zieks' autopsy. There is someone. He's gone to extraordinary lengths to cover his tracks, even so far as dispatching an assassin all the way to Japan to ensure Dr. Wilson's silence. And Dr. Side won't say anything against Strongheart. But there's still one ray of hope.
Objection!
Actually, there is one person. One person who could still testify about that autopsy. Don't be ridiculous, there is no one left. Yeah, you made sure of that, didn't you? Who, Ryunosuke, who? Tell me. Kazuma, Please, this trial can't end, not yet. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for the truth. The person the defense would like to call to the stand to testify about the autopsy of Lord Clint Van Zieks is Professor Eugene Mikotoba.
Take that!
Heaven help us, another Japanese. An expert in forensic medicine, my lord. Professor Eugen Mikitoba. 16 years ago, he came to London with Seishiro Jigoku and Genshin Asugi as a visiting student. And what could his testimony possibly tell us? Professor Mikitoba was the primary assistant during the autopsy in question. He was also the person who actually penned the report. Incorrect! The autopsy was carried out by the coroner, Dr. Wilson. The report carries his signature. It was the primary assistant's duty to keep a written record of the coroner's work during the procedure. In actual fact, the coroner merely read over the report at the end and signed it. In other words, Professor Mikitoba witnessed the entire autopsy from start to finish. The defense demands that Professor Mikitoba be summoned as a witness as a matter of urgency. Whatever really happened in that autopsy laboratory 10 years ago is something only he can tell us. The defense's demand is denied. Yeah, 'cause that makes you look not suspicious, dude. What? But Professor Mikitoba is in London at this very moment. We could summon him to the stand in minutes. No, of course he's not going to agree to it. Strongheart has no intention of summoning anyone who knows. He's too concerned about protecting himself. Prosecutor Asugi, let me refresh your memory, as you seem to have forgotten the prosecution's stance. Only minutes ago you accused the defendant of being the Reaper and masterminding the assassin exchange. I did, yes. So present your evidence for those claims and make your case complete. At this time, I don't have the requisite evidence, but that's exactly why we need witness testimony. The Professor case is closed. There are no clues in the distant past that will bolster your argument today. I'm afraid to say, Prosecutor Asugi, that you would appear to be possessed by the spirit of your late homicidal father. Now, as I stated earlier, this court has already reached a conclusion with respect to the matter at hand. Inspector Gregson was murdered by Japanese Supreme Court Judge Seishiro Jigoku. As for any hidden circumstances that may exist, they will be investigated in due course by the proper authorities.
Objection!
But we all know what will happen! That'll just give the mastermind of the whole venture time to cover his tracks again! By which you mean me. Your punishment for this contemptible behaviour will be decided at a later date. As for you, Prosecutor Asugi, you will be remanded following these proceedings, willingly, I trust, since you gave your word. This futile game of revenge is over, young Master Asugi. Come on, we've got to have a way of pinning it on him. That will be all. I hereby declare this trial to be over. Court is... Whose hold is that? Sholmes! He did say he had something to prepare. Mr. Sholmes. This is no place for an amateur detection, Mr. Sholmes. May I remind you that these proceedings are closed to the general public. You will leave the courtroom at once.
Objection!
Mr. Sholmes was instrumental in the apprehension of Seishiro Jigoku before he fled from Europe. The court should hear what he has to say. Lord Mayor Strongheart, it's imperative that you refrain from bringing this trial to an end at this stage. Is it really, and why would that be? You need only recall your own words from the opening of the trial to answer that question, if I may. We will stop at nothing to uncover the whole truth behind these disturbing findings. Surely it can't be that the shock of being accused of being the Reaper yourself has erased that from your memory, can it? The whole truth, sir, has already been uncovered. No, it hasn't. We know the assassin, we don't know the hand that ordered it. It would seem that we have a great many important members of the judiciary here present today. I put it to you, my dear fellows, should the trial end at this juncture? After all, why have you been invited to attend? To nod along to the prevarications of your superiors? Order! Order in court! It seems to me that we stand before a door that leads to a new era of legal practices. A door that is ajar. Let us emerge from the shadows of the Reaper's decade-long ascendancy. For you and you alone, my dear fellows, have the power to push this door open now. The auditors in the gallery have no rights to express an opinion on court proceedings. Silence! He's right. The judge has absolute authority here. Yes, if he calls the trial to an end, it must end. But will that really do? I sense dark things occurring behind the scenes. Dark things indeed. Is there a single person here present who can honestly say... What was that? Who can honestly say he doesn't sense the same? There we go. What's... The trial should go on. Summon the witness. That's right. We need to clear this up before that young Japanese fellow is in custody. Oh, look at Kazuma's face. My lord, you assured those present you would uncover the whole truth here. Vindicate yourself of this outlandish accusation. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's the very foundation of British law. A toast to my dependable colleagues in the gallery. On with the trial! On with the trial! Testify! 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 Oh, my lord! You hear the voice of British justice, I take it. Testify! Testify! I think you will find it rather awkward to silence. The court will recess briefly. I have no intention of shrinking from these allegations. Bailiff, arrange for the subpoena of the witness at once. As soon as the gentleman arrives at the courthouse, we shall reconvene. A recess won't be necessary, my lord. Pardon? I guess Mikotoba's already here. Mikotoba is a close friend of mine. He accompanied me today and waits in the antechamber as we speak. I do believe he's been enjoying a little trip down memory lane, in fact. What? Professor Mikotoba is here in the courthouse? Mr. Sholmes, you didn't know this would happen, did you? My dear fellow, no one is in a better position to answer that question than you, surely. I wasn't just asking for the fun of it, you know. Well, I must thank you for your assistance in this matter, Mr. Sholmes. However, you are of no further use here. Kindly leave the courtroom at once. But of course. In truth, I find myself rather busy now as a result of these developments. Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? I trust you have Iris's little lucky charm with you? Absolutely. It's still in my pocket. She sends her regards and a reminder. If you find yourself at a dead end, the ears are at your disposal. Just one tug, if you please. Of course. Hey, it's no problem, Haunter. Naps are good. In that case, the trial will continue without delay. Bailiff, show the witness to the stand. So it's Lord Strongheart. He is the Reaper of the Bailey. Where exactly is this trial going to take me, I wonder? Just how deep am I about to be plunged into the blackness of the abyss? Well, I'm ready. I'm ready to head into the heart of this maelstrom and confront whatever horrors it tries to drown me under. To be continued next time, because I need food. And a break from all the deep booming voices that this requires of me. So, I'm going to call the stream here. Thank you very much for coming. It's been fun. If you're new here and you've enjoyed your time, please consider subscribing to the channel. You can also follow me on Twitter, which is linked in the description. The streaming schedule... Well, this was the last scheduled stream of the week, so the streaming schedule for next week will be posted both on Twitter and here on the YouTube community tab later tonight, probably. The next stream should be tomorrow, 7 PM, and I think that's going to be Twisted Wonderland to deal with the newest part of the event. So I hope to see you then, or another time. Once again, thanks for coming. And this is Kalla signing out. See ya. Bye bye.